Attention wrestling fans. You're now about to listen to the man coming down the aisle from the main streets of South Elgin, Illinois, with a microphone in his hand and questions on his mind. This is What Do You Say with DDJ.
Welcome, everyone, to episode 23 of What Do You Say with DDJ. As always, I'm your host, DDJ, and I'm just going to get right into it. My guest this week is a man who hails from the great state of Wisconsin, even though he is a Packers fan, but nobody's perfect. His name is the Brawler, Jay Kross, so grab your favorite beverage, grab your favorite snack, get comfy, relax, kick back, and enjoy episode 23 of What Do You Say with DDJ. And my guest this week, the Brawler, Jay Kross.
This is P.L. Myers, a shot to the top, pro wrestling's manager extraordinaire. And there's only one thing you should be watching, one thing you should be listening to, and that's the man himself. What do you say with DDJ?
All right, welcome to another episode of What Do You Say with DDJ, and joining me this evening is the Brawler, Jay Kross. Jay, how are you doing this evening?
I'm good. How are you?
Good. Thank you so much for asking. So let's get right into it, Jay. Tell me, my audience a little bit about yourself, where you're from.
I'm the Brawler, Jay Kross from Wisconsin. Wrestle mainly in like the Midwest. Chicago, Indiana, Wisconsin.
All right. So I guess hearing that you're from Wisconsin, it begs the question, with the football playoffs starting up or have already been started by the time this episode drops, Bears or Packers?
Packers.
I don't know if I can do this anymore. So,
but I like the Bengals too. So I mean.
Oh, okay. Well, I'll get. Okay. I
have plenty of hurt in my heart too.
Yeah, I know the Bears fans have had it rough, but Bengals fans have even had it worse. So, yeah. So, all right, Jay. So, how did you discover pro wrestling?
Well, as long as I can remember, I loved pro wrestling. When I was a kid, my dad actually wrestled, so I kind of grew up riding in the back seats with him and some other guys in the Midwest. So, I've kind of been around it my whole life.
Cool. What did your dad wrestle? Who did he wrestle as?
He wrestled as Tank Thomas, and then he also wrestled as Brad Hammers.
Okay, cool. So when you started watching professional wrestling, like on TV and stuff, who were some of your early favorites?
Sting, I think, is like who hooked me. Like, I loved everything about Sting as a kid. So that was definitely my first like memory was WCW and Sting, and then with WWF I was always into like Mankind.
Cool.
And then later I got into Terry Funk and Bruiser Brody and a whole bunch of people.
Okay. And so like when you mentioned Sting, by the time you discovered Sting, was he already the Crow or was he still the Surfer Sting?
He was the Crow.
Okay. Yeah, I Sting's one of my favorites, but I'm more of a Surfer Sting fan. So
okay,
and that, but
the Crow was actually my favorite movie, so it kind of.
Oh, okay, yeah,
that's
good. That's a good. He drew. I know he drew a lot of inspiration for the Crow character from the movie. So, how old were you when you decided that you wanted to follow in your father's footsteps and become a professional wrestler?
Way too young. I think for as long as I could remember, I wanted to be a pro wrestler. And, my parents at the time were just like, yeah, you can do whatever you want when you're, 18 or whatever. Well, then, like, I turned 18, but I turned 18 my junior year.
So okay.
Changed their mind and said I had to be 19.
Oh, they threw a curveball at you.
As soon as I was out of high school, I started training.
Okay. And did your dad play a role in your training?
No.
Okay. Who did you train under?
I trained under Silas Young.
Oh,
And then after that, I kind of learned a lot from guys like Randy Ritchie and Tank Melson.
mm-hmm.
Um, then, I mean, of course, just along the way, I learned a lot from guys like Steve Stone, Brandon Blaze, Beer City Bruiser.
Wow, very cool. So I'm a huge fan of Silas Young, so that's really neat to hear that because he's one of my favorites in Ring of Honor. What was he like as a trainer? Because I know on his character he's like the last real man. So is he just as intense as a trainer as he is as a performer?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, he's a pretty intense guy. I don't have anything bad to say about him. He's a good guy, but he's definitely an intense individual.
Gotcha. Okay. All right.
I was also young and dumb at that point, so
But so what was maybe like in terms of advice that he gave you? Was there a certain piece of advice that Silas gave you that really kind of really resonated with you and something I guess that really holds true to this day?
essentially, how do I say it? I would say essentially, no one's going to protect you or your character better than yourself.
Mm-hmm.
No one's going to look out for you better than yourself. So just don't be afraid to, you know, ask, stand up, say no to things, work things out and be professional, but don't necessarily just say yes, sir, and go with everything.
Okay, that's a good piece of advice to have. So where you mentioned that you work, the Midwest, Wisconsin, Illinois, Indiana. Like after you once you got into your training and stuff, what were some of the promotions that you worked for?
Well, when I originally started training, I worked for a lot of the Milwaukee Feds. So ICW, I worked for um, Colonel, I worked for POW, I worked for a couple other ones around that time. CLPW was
Okay.
around at that point. Um, and those were pretty much it for quite a while. When I first broke in, I'm not gonna say there wasn't a lot around, but I mean it. There wasn't as much as there is now. And
Mhm.
for the first couple years, really, I worked like maybe once a month, twice a month. It wasn't until probably 4 or 5 years into it where I kind of got to branch out and do more and
Yeah.
go other places. I mean, it's kind of like an apprenticeship. You have to build your name and get your name out there before
Mhm.
people are going to look at you.
Okay. So you mentioned your time frame. When was this time frame? When did you start training? Like what year?
I started training in 2008,
Okay.
wrestling in like probably 2009. And then, like I said, I would say it wasn't until 2011, 2012 where I kind of got to branch out more.
Mm-hmm.
And then, I mean, luckily over the years, I've gotten more and more opportunity. And I mean, you get some, you lose some as far as companies go. And you just kind of got to find what companies take care of you and what companies you enjoy working for. Um, there's a whole bunch of companies that you can work for, but eventually they just feel like a job.
Right.
Like, and then there's companies that you work for that you just love going. And I've had both. And like sometimes the companies that feels like a job are some of the bigger companies, or maybe a company that your name's getting out there more, but you're not always necessarily having fun.
Okay.
So it's kind of hit or miss. You kind of got to pick your battles when it comes to stuff, and maybe do some stuff that you don't want to, and maybe not do some stuff that you enjoy doing, but if it doesn't benefit you at certain points.
Right. Understandable. So you'd mentioned working for POW, and that's the promotion I believe that Jimmy Blaze runs.
Yes.
Yeah, so Jimmy, I've known Jimmy for a few years, stemming back from his days in PC when he was in PCW. What's it like working for Jimmy?
I like Jimmy. I only wrestled for Pow like a couple times, and then I've wrestled for Jimmy since then for other companies.
Okay,
'Cause he books for other companies. So I like Jimmy. We've always gotten along. We've had our feuds and stuff in the business, but
right,
he's a great guy.
right. So, would you say like would be someone that you consider like you had like either like a really good feud with, or like just one really good match with, and why was it good?
Um, I would say I've had some really good ones with Alex Bernardino.
Okay,
I've had some really good ones with a former tag team partner of mine, EJ Jensen. I've had some good ones with my other tag team partner, Backwoods Brown.
okay, yes, I'm familiar with him.
Mhm. Um, it's hard. I mean, sometimes the ones you like, for instance, the one with EJ, I had a great match with EJ that I love, but it wasn't filmed, so
Oh,
it's gone. So all we have is the memory and
right.
scars. So
Uh, um, so, so obviously, you started out in Wisconsin. Like, what was it like for you when you started kind of branching out more? Like, you started wrestling in Illinois and Indiana, and you actually kind of started, you know, traveling more and stuff. What's life like on the road for you?
I mean, traveling can be super fun,
Mhm.
especially when you're younger.
Right.
I always enjoyed traveling, especially when you're traveling with the guys. You get a car full of guys and go. Um, I mean, if you leave early, you can kind of just do whatever on the way there and have fun.
Mhm.
And really, that's what the road is about. Is just the brotherhood of having fun. Grabbing tacos at night, grabbing White Castle, uh, partying, going to the bar, coming home, which I still enjoy all of those things. But now I'm married and have a kid, and so it's a
You have to,
little less these
y-
days.
yeah, you kind of have to do it. You have your fun in a little bit of a different way. I would think,
Mhm.
right?
I enjoy it in small doses now.
Gotcha.
But I mean,
So,
I like the road. A lot of great wrestling memories that I have are not from wrestling themselves, are just
mhm.
from being on the road and doing stuff, or getting hotels and stuff
Yeah,
like that.
yeah, and I
Uh,
and I
I
and I,
got to do some like commercials
Mhm.
and stuff like that just due to wrestling as well. So a lot of the stuff that I really enjoy about wrestling sometimes has nothing to do with wrestling, which is kind of funny.
Well, I mean, I know I always I've heard stories, a lot of, wrestlers that they always talk about that they look forward to being on the road and stuff. Cause a lot of times, it's just you and your guys and stuff, and I'm sure you've probably, shared some like, really good stories and had some like, just some everlasting memories and stuff like that, just stopping off for tacos and White Castles. Is there any like really good road stories that you can share that won't land you in any hot water with anyone?
He, oh, I don't know. I mean, nothing's really like gonna get me in trouble or anything, I guess, but
Mhm.
it's just hard to. A lot of it, I mean, especially now with COVID. I mean,
Right.
I miss that stuff.
Mhm.
Nobody's really got to do that. A lot of the shows have been, either stopped by the state or whatever level has stepped in. So those are the things that I am looking forward to getting back to. But a lot of the road stories, I guess, are just like pranks with the guys, and
Mhm.
I guess when I was younger, drinking and dumb shit that happens.
Right. So what would you say? Because you mentioned pranks and stuff like that, and I've heard some. You always hear about the legendary stories that like guys like Owen Hart and Mr. Perfect used to do. Is there any like really legendary pranks that you pulled on someone, and then at the same time, any pranks that you were like the victim of that you can share?
For me, I'm not really like much of a prankster
Hmm.
as far as that goes. Um, I guess I don't really do any like physical pranks. Like sometimes I just like to mess with people, and like
Okay.
I get to a show and be like, hey, you're wrestling that guy. I'll be like, hey, so we're gonna do a 10,000 thumbtack death match tonight. I think I'm gonna beat you with a fireball. Is that cool?
Oh boy, I'm
Or I'll
feeling.
say like, hey man, gonna give you a power bomb through a flaming table off the top rope. I'll talk to you later. And just walk away, kind of see how they handle that or what they
Right.
say.
Any and typically, how long would you make the guy like wait or sweat until you'd be like, just messing with you? Do you basically not even say anything and then just let him go into that match, then they thinking that's going to happen?
I mean, sometimes soon, sometimes never. Honestly, there's a lot of guys. There's a lot of guys that just say okay
Just like whatever.
and move on. Uh, so
Cool.
it depends on really their attitude, I guess, of
Mhm.
how it comes off.
So, in your time as a professional wrestler, which you said you started out in 2008, correct? If I remember correctly, right?
Yeah.
Um, have you been able to, like, with any of these shows? Because a lot of times, independent promotions, they would bring in, like some, a legend or someone, that's pretty well known and stuff like that. Have you ever been lucky enough to cross paths with anybody that maybe you used to watch on TV?
Yes, I've been on a lot of shows with a lot of names
Mhm.
from that time, but I'll just name some of the people I've gotten to actually wrestle.
Yeah,
Um,
cool. Go ahead.
so I got to wrestle Rhino,
Oh,
which was a
nice.
blast. I got to wrestle Steve Carino, which was a blast.
Oh, I bet.
Got to wrestle Kazarni.
Okay.
I got to wrestle. I got to do a. I didn't get to wrestle them, but they were involved in my match with Demolition.
Oh, wow.
God, there's another one that's escaping me. Adam Rose.
Okay.
So I know those are some of the guys that I've gotten to wrestle over the years, and
Mhm.
otherwise, I mean, I've been on a lot of shows with a lot of guys like Carl Anderson and Luke Gallows and Honky Tonk Man and Greg the Hammer Valentine, Jake the Snake, King Kong Bundy.
Cool. So did you like out of all the guys that you were able to like wrestle and stuff like you mentioned Rhino, who would you say was like out of all those guys that you watched on TV, did you say you enjoyed working with the most?
Rhino.
And why? And why was that?
I mean, I guess it just we chemistry wise, it was easy.
Hmm.
Um, it was fun. He's a nice guy, laid back.
Yes, he is very nice guy.
Yeah.
That's
So I mean, I guess that was out of all the people, like that's the one. I guess secondly would definitely be Carino. Steve
okay.
Carino. Um, I think those two are the ones that stand out for me.
Okay. And then you mentioned all the other guys that you've been on the same shows with, with Gals and Anderson and Demolition and stuff. Did you like were most or if not all of your experiences with like these guys that these companies would bring in, did you usually have pretty good interactions with them?
For the most part, I mean, like I really enjoyed hanging out and talking with Demolition.
Mhm.
I really enjoyed hanging out and talking with Greg the Hammer Valentine. Matt Hardy was a super laid back guy.
Mhm.
Dalton Castle was super
Yeah.
pleasant to be around. Um, those are the ones that stand out to me. That they were just nice guys. Jake the Snake is a nice guy, odd, but uh, I enjoyed
Right.
talking to him.
Right.
He's an intense guy too. So,
Yeah.
but good time.
Good time. So when you met Jake, was this before or after he cleaned himself up?
Uh, it was kind of like during because
Okay.
like he not it was kind of like in the middle, I guess. He wasn't it wasn't the old Jake the Snake, but it wasn't the new one.
Mm-hmm.
I've met him, I think, 2 or 3 times, so I kind of got to meet him over a couple times, and the last two were after the DDP and all that stuff.
Right. Yeah, he's pretty cool. Like I was fortunate enough to get to meet him. I think it was about maybe a year or so before the movie come out, but he was doing an appearance at like a movie theater, and they were showing the documentary that WWE put out on him and stuff. And I think this was just like right after, I think, or maybe around that same time he was trying to get himself clean. I want to say, I think that was like maybe 2014, I believe, or something right around that time and stuff. But yeah, it's
Sounds about right.
yeah, and it's really good to see, him, where he's at now, because he looks good. He seems happy, I mean, he's still involved in the business. He's killing it, as Lance Archer's manager on AEW and that. So it's just really great to see him like that. So obviously, I got in contact with you once I saw that you were going to be, appearing for John Bullard for the CCW show coming up in April. Tell me a little bit about how you and John Bullard connected.
It was kind of the same way you and I did.
Mm-hmm.
I was just kind of doing my thing, and he commented, and we started talking. We found some common interest with. We both use Indian clubs.
Okay, yeah.
So we kind of found some common ground in that, and obviously wrestling. I guess with today's events going on and what's going on in the world, I always kind of like to say that I like that wrestling, it doesn't matter what, race, religion, anything you are. I mean, if you like pro wrestling, you like pro wrestling.
Exactly.
So that's kind of the thing, I guess, that, got us talking, and he kind of said he liked my style. I reminded him of Stan Hansen and Bruiser Brody and
nice
stuff like that. And I was like, oh, I love those guys. And he was just like, oh, he's like, well, I have a company, so you wanna come in sometime? And I was like, yeah, for sure.
Mm-hmm.
And then actually shortly after I met him, I tore my bicep, so I actually wasn't able to make that first show.
Oh, so you were originally supposed to be on the first show then?
Yeah, I was supposed to be in the mix, but I ended up having to have surgery. So.
Wow. And I'm assuming that you're either fully or pretty close to being fully recovered from that.
Yeah, I mean, pretty close. I don't know if I'll ever necessarily be recovered, but I don't know. I've been wrestling for, I guess, since 2008, and I've had 2 surgeries, so
not bad.
I guess in hindsight, it's not bad, but yeah, I've broke my leg and I tore my bicep. So those were 2 surgeries, and everything else was kind of just the nagging healing stuff, like broken noses and broken ribs and hurt knees and stuff like that. So can't complain.
Gotcha. So I've seen the videos of John with the clubs and stuff like that, and obviously I believe the Iron Sheik was the one that kind of made that famous, I guess, so to speak. What is if you don't mind me asking, what are those clubs like? What do they do for you in terms of like with your working out and stuff like that? Like what exactly do they do for you, if you don't mind me asking?
For me, I like them because they're, well, obviously I like them because they're different.
Mm-hmm.
Not a lot of people know what they are. But I mean, as far as the workout goes, it's one of those things where like it's cardio, it engages your core.
Okay.
As you're doing everything, you're like stretching your chest and neck and shoulders and all that stuff out with the weight.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess with dumbbells and stuff, your positioning and how you use your technique, like everything is so like solid and what's the word I'm looking for? Almost kind of a rigid form.
Okay.
Where the clubs kind of get you to loosen up, and it stretches things for you and makes you a lot more, flexible, loose. It helps me not, I think, tear things. I got into them after I tore my bicep, of course, but it just kind of helps everything not be so tight. Like
Okay.
with dumbbells and bench and stuff, everything gets tight.
Right. Um, so was this something that you discovered like on your own while you were recovering from your injury, or was this something like your doctor kind of pointed you in the direction of?
No, it was actually Derek St. Holmes Esquire.
Okay.
He's definitely a Midwest legend, I would say.
Okay.
Around here, he's always been into it. As I said earlier, my dad wrestled, and when my dad wrestled, I traveled with him and Derek St. Holmes most of the time.
Mm-hmm.
So I've known him for forever, and he's always kind of been into it. And I always thought it was cool, but then recently I just kind of was like, hey, so what's the deal with the clubs? Let's see. So I bought a small pair, and then he ended up selling me a couple pairs. So just kind of got into it that way. I like that it doesn't take up a lot of space.
Mm-hmm.
They're a lot heavier than they look. Because obviously the weight proportion is so much different than a dumbbell.
Right.
I remember when he came over to my house and he was like, "Hey, do you want the 11 pounders or the 15 pounders?" And being a classic egotistical jock, I was like, "Well, the 15s, of course. Like, I'm not gonna buy the 11s if you got the 15s." And I picked up the 11s, not knowing what they were, and started doing them. And I was like, "Oh man!" And he was like, "All right, you want to try the 15s?" And I was like, "What are those?" And he was like, "Oh, those are the 11s." So I picked up the 15s, and I was doing those. But the biggest thing about Indian clubs is being able to have the correct form and
Mm-hmm.
and posture and stuff while you do it, because otherwise they'll hurt you super easily. Because I mean, if you do them wrong, you can tear stuff just doing them, because it's such an awkward uh, weight and like proportion that if
Mm-hmm.
you just slip, you're kind of in some big trouble. So kind of got to work your way up, which is humbling, because if I go to the gym, I can pick up 50-pound dumbbells, whatever, and start from there. But with the clubs, they're so different, and they
Right.
take so much more of your body to stabilize them. Because when you're doing the swings, you got to stabilize your core and your legs, and you got to make sure your back's straight and your chest is out, and
Mm-hmm.
everything's lining up to be able to complete that swing. Where
Okay.
dumbbells, you're kind of doing the same thing, but it's very different.
Right. Okay. Well, thanks so much for explaining. I've seen them and stuff, and I've seen the videos of like John doing them. I've seen the Iron Sheik do them and stuff, and it's just like I didn't realize that that they were really that as different from like say the dumbbells as you had mentioned. So that's actually really really good info there.
If
Um.
anybody's wanting to check it out, a good video to check out actually is Seamus has that YouTube channel, the
Yeah. Yeah.
self cuts. Him and Samoa Joe do them,
Okay.
and it's a great video to kind of just get started and look into it.
Cool. Well, I'll have to put that in excuse me, the episode description, just maybe make it a little easier for my listeners to check that out and stuff. So you'd mentioned a little while ago when you were talking with John that he said that his that you reminded him of Stan Hansen and Bruiser Brody. Was that like when you set out to start creating your character? Were those two guys that you originally had in mind that you kind of wanted your character to emulate, or did you have something different?
When I started, no, which was kind of funny, because when I started, the original character that Dysfunction gave me was Redneck Chet Boyette,
Okay.
and I hated it. Like, I remember breaking and being so excited, and I was just like, "Oh, I don't want to be a redneck, and I don't want to do this character and blah blah." Like I said, I was young and dumb.
Mm.
I kind of burned my bridges in that area. But a long time ago. But what's funny is over time, as I evolved and kind of grew into myself, I realized that that character wasn't very far off from myself.
Okay.
So as the years went on, uh, I ended up forming a tag team with my buddy Backwoods Brown called Big Country.
Hmm.
We were basically just, two redneck type guys from the sticks. And then over time, I became Outlaw J, which was kind of I w- it gets, I guess, explained as a redneck or cowboy outlaw character, but for me, it was just kind of my roots of being a Wisconsin boy.
Okay.
So I mean, I was Outlaw J, and now I'm Brawler J, which is still the same guy. I mean, my gimmick is essentially who I am. I'm a 330-pound guy from Wisconsin, so I like to drink beer. I like to watch wrestling. I like to work out. I like to do, some other things. But I guess the easiest part of the character for me is that it's not far off from who I am.
Yeah.
So it's just funny that I hated the redneck character, but then eventually ended up being the redneck character, and now I love it. So
And that's since I've always heard that a lot of times like the best characters are those that are just like extensions or like the wrestler's personality or their essence just turned up a few notches. So
when I broke in, I feel like I wanted to be Sting, or I wanted to be, Stone Cold, or whatever,
mhm.
because that's kind of who I grew up with. But then as I got into stuff, I discovered that I was like, I really like Cactus Jack, and I really like Terry Funk, and I really like Stan Hansen and Bruiser Brody, and kind of getting into that stuff, and Masato Tanaka, and um, some of the Japan guys.
Okay.
So I guess I over time realized that the redneck character is not far off from the characters that I love,
Mhm.
and ended up wanting to be.
Cool. So you'd mentioned Masato Tanaka and other Japanese wrestlers. Are you a fan of New Japan Wrestling?
I like New Japan,
Mhm.
but it's not my flavor of ice cream all the time.
Fair-
Um, I think stuff that I really enjoy. I guess I like Japan, but I like IWA Japan uh,
Okay.
from like the 90s, like 98, 99. I like IWA Puerto Rico,
Okay.
kind of like that stuff. I get into a whole bunch of stuff. I mean, I have loads and loads and loads of DVDs and stuff, and over time it's went from the WWE DVDs to all this obscure stuff that most people would come over and be like, "What is this?" But yeah, I really like IWA Japan, IWA Puerto Rico. Um, Lately, I've been really into like British wrestling.
Okay.
Um, Kind of like 2015 ICW UK and Progress and Defy. I'm all over the place with wrestling. I love 80s wrestling, 90s wrestling.
Hmm.
I mean, I like some of today's. Um, I'm I really like deathmatch wrestling. I
Okay.
don't, but that's something that I enjoy watching. Like I like watching, you know, Moxley and Janela and Darby and Jimmy Havoc and Ricky Shane Page, and I mean
Mhm.
every wrestling, like I said, wrestling for me is flavors of ice cream, and everybody's got different flavors that they like, and I
Right.
think that the key of it is to take a scoop of all of that to make yourself, if you're a wrestler, or if you're a fan, just like don't be afraid to take a bite of vanilla over there and a bite of strawberry over here.
That's a really good analogy, and it really rings true to me because I for the longest time it was just basically WWF or WCW. Then
Mhm.
I stumbled into ECW, and then it's just as I got older and stuff. Then I just started eventually I started watching Ring of Honor and Impact and then New Japan and AEW, but and also obviously independent wrestling, which I've really become a big fan of independent wrestling again. I kind of fell out of it for a while, and just the last couple, years, I've really started getting back into it, especially since now I'm really into indie wrestling more than ever because, with me doing this show and talking with you and some of the other guys I've had on, it's really allowed me to kind of get to know, all of you guys, and it just makes it so much easier to, support because, it's like I talked to this guy, like I connected with this guy, and it's really awesome. And one of the things I really love about independent wrestling, and I've always loved about it, is the interaction between the wrestlers and the audience, because you see it in some of the back before COVID, you would see some with WWE, and AEW and all the major organizations and stuff like that, but it just seemed like it'd become a bit of a lost art and stuff, whereas on the indies it's like where a lot of companies I think really tend to stand out, because I love that interaction. Like I love being able to yell at a guy or tell so and so you suck or give him the finger, but then after the show or on my podcast I can talk to him and it's just we get along just like you and I are right now and stuff, so it's just really cool. So
I mean, especially right now, I guess the last couple years, I guess 2019, 2020, but especially now, but the last 5-6 years, as far as wrestling went, there was TNA or there was WWE.
Right.
That was pretty much it. And it's kind of getting exciting again because you got AEW, but also with AEW there's so many other organizations that aren't as big but are at least getting noticed,
right,
and more available for people to watch and get into. And I know plenty of people that are like, oh yeah, I grew out of wrestling, I don't like it anymore, blah blah blah. And I was just like, all right, so what did you grow out of? And it's like, oh, I just don't like WWE. And I was like, but there's so much more. Just try this or watch this. And I've noticed that there's a lot of guys that love independent wrestling, but they don't like WWE and stuff like that anymore, which I kind of like all of it.
Right.
I don't really follow it as hard anymore. Like kind of what you said, I really like the indie stuff and kind of like the not as internationally known stuff. But it's good. And then you mentioned the fans, so for me, whether you love or hate me, I can't make money and I can't pay my bills unless you guys either love me or hate me.
Right.
So I mean, to me, the fans are everything as far as indie wrestling goes. I mean, that's how I sell t-shirts, that's how I sell merch, that's how I make my money, and that's how I essentially get to go other places. I mean, without my fans, I wouldn't be getting to go to John Bullard's Federation.
Well, a couple more questions, and then I'll let you have some time to plug, your upcoming shows and then your merch and stuff. So you mentioned that you follow the current product. Who are some of the guys that are currently wrestling on Monday nights, Tuesday nights, Wednesday nights, and Friday nights that you follow, or you would say you're a fan of?
Okay. I mean, WWE, I would say Bray Wyatt, Orton. I mean, those two can't really do anything wrong. They're great.
Right.
Anything Orton does is gold. He's really good at what he does.
Absolutely.
I'll jump to AEW. So AEW, I really like Moxley. I've always been into Moxley ever since IWA and IPW and HWA and all these indie feds that he kind of started in. And right. I like Darby Allin. I like Joey Janela. Jump to obviously like Kenny Omega and stuff. I used to, when I watched New Japan, it was when Bullet Club was wild, so it was
okay.
Finn Balor and Omega and the Bullet Club with Anderson and Gallows, and so then with Impact, I've always been a Sami Callihan fan.
Oh, he's great.
I love Sami Callihan. Got to meet him a few times.
Yep, me too.
Um, so yeah, just as far as current, like I just those are the guys that I guess stand out to me. There's so many more, obviously. Like I guess recently, um, the British stuff. I've been kind of getting into that stuff. So
Right. Yeah.
watching guys like Jimmy Havoc was over there, um, Dave Mastiff,
Mhm.
uh, Wild Boar,
Yeah.
Mikey Whiplash, Balor when he was over there, um, Jack Gallagher,
Mhm.
Pete Dunne. I think Pete Dunne's pretty great. Uh, so yeah, I mean, those are I guess the guys on TV right now that I like. But there's so many other guys that are just indie guys that I'm sure not a lot of people even know of, but I like. And then of course I'm always watching anything I can get a hold of Brody or Funk or
Mhm.
Abdullah or any of those from the
Gotcha.
old school days.
Gotcha. So I like to you mentioned the British wrestling scene because with the advent of NXT UK and the WWE Network, that's really kind of allowed me to start watching it. And I was a really huge fan of the Heritage Cup tournament that they just did. Once they relaunched NXT UK because it was something different, but I loved it and stuff. You mentioned AEW and Impact, and I kind of wanted to get your thoughts on what they're doing right now, how they're doing all this cross promotion. I mean, we just, I don't know if you watched Dynamite last night. We're recording on a Thursday. So Dynamite had happened last night and just kind of wanted to get your take on what you're seeing with what Impact and AEW are doing together.
I think as far as business goes, I think it's genius.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, in order to match up with WWE, I mean, obviously the Khan family has money, but WWE has that reach.
Mm-hmm.
Anywhere you go in the world is going to know what WWE is.
Right.
So, and I think in today's situation, like unless you can work with each other, that's, I mean, that's how it's going to have to be. And I think by doing that, you're going to create so many more fans to bring in because there's people that I know that only watch NXT and they only watch Impact and they only watch AEW. Well, now that AEW and Impact are together, well, now we're going to kind of get to see some of that. And then AEW and Impact are also kind of wrapped into the New Japan thing.
Yep.
So with all that going on, I think it's genius. Like you're going to be able to draw people in. You're going to get people to kind of go, oh, what about that guy?
Right.
So I'm kind of excited for how it turns out. Like I think it's exciting now, but I'm more looking forward to what it's going to be in 2 months, 3 months, 5 months, a year down the road.
100% agree. A wrestling group that I'm a part of on Facebook, Pro Wrestling Junkies. I talk with a few of the members on a regular basis. I do another podcast with two of them, and we talk all the time as we plan our shows or try to, if one of us has an idea and stuff. And that's one thing we've been talking about. Is just everybody's so excited about what the possibilities are with this cross promotion. I mean, we got Kenny Omega's main eventing, Impact Wrestling's next pay-per-view that'll be happening in about around a week or so from when this episode drops. And then obviously, now that the Young Bucks are in the fold with them, I mean, and the tweets that, Tama Tonga's been sending out, I mean, yeah, it's just the possibilities of what this is bringing is endless. And it's just, I think all wrestling fans should be really excited about this because this is something a lot of us, never thought we'd see.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, like I said, I think it's going to be really fun to see where they're at in 6 months to a year and how that's going on. And I mean, it's like even with the British stuff, I saw that WWE Network now, I guess, has all of like the ICW, UK,
Progress, yeah.
all progress and stuff like that.
WXW out of Germany, I believe.
It's yeah, so I mean it's not cross promotion, but at the same time, if you think about it, it kind of is because without companies like that, you wouldn't have got the WWE UK or the NXT UK, and
Right.
like that. So I guess with all the stuff that they now own, WWE, I mean, for AEW and Impact and New Japan and even AAA and stuff, I mean, band together, make money and have fun, and give the fans a product that we can all enjoy.
Agreed. And one of the things that's always fun with me is like, when I started, when I started watching New Japan and stuff, that's when I first started, saw Kenny Omega, the Young Bucks and stuff, and it's like, it's really a lot. Once I really got into them, it's made me want to go back and say, oh, I want to see what they did, before all of this. So that's, helped me discover, Pro Wrestling Gorilla, something that I've, really gotten into. I got a bunch of their DVDs and stuff.
I got like Wrestling Gorilla like 2011 and 2012 on Blu-ray, like every single show in there. And like, I mean, those are amazing DVDs. They're stacked. I mean, it's pretty much almost all the guys on TV now.
Yeah, exactly. I was just about to say that. It's almost like a who's who of, the professional wrestling in 2021.
Uh,
And that's so. All right. So before I let you go for the evening, I want to give you a few moments to plug, any upcoming shows you got, and then also how people can support you by buying your merch. So, Jay, floor is yours.
all right. Well, I do have a Pro Wrestling Tees store. Just go to Pro Wrestling Tees, type in J Kross, Kross with a K.
Mm-hmm.
I think I got 4 shirts up there right now. If you're local and in the area, when I wrestle, I always have a merchandise table, and it's kind of like a mini wrestling store. I mean, I have anything from DVDs to figures to, odd relic type stuff. You can go on to collarandelbow.com, use promo code BrawlerJ at checkout. You can get a discount on that, and that sends me a little bit of money. Also, anybody into energy drinks or supplements, I'm also sponsored by Rep Sports.
Okay.
So if you go to repsports.com, you can use code KROSS, KROSS, at checkout. Get a discount as well. I think it's 15%. That always sends me some money as well. So if you're into energy drinks, I recommend trying the Raise Energy. Baja Lime is my jam right now.
All right.
That's about it for plugs as far as my personal stuff. But with COVID going on, wrestling's kind of dying out around Wisconsin, Illinois. So the next show that I definitely have coming up is April 17th in Indiana for Chicago Championship Wrestling. I will be taking on the Ewok.
All right.
It'll be J Kross versus the Ewok. I'm really looking forward to that, because if there's one thing that I hate more than anything in the world, it's Star Wars.
Oh, geez.
Star Trek, Lord of the Rings, Harry Potter, any of that. This guy just needs pro wrestling and beer and my loving wife and child. So I'm looking forward to punching Ewok in the face. That's for sure.
Awesome. Well, then I better not ever. I'm not going to tell you that I have all the Star Wars movies on Blu-ray, because I don't want to get on your bad side. So,
nerd.
Okay, I can live with that. So,
Well, I'm at the end of the day, I'm a pro wrestling nerd. So, I mean, pro wrestling is all for me. So, I mean, I get it.
Yeah. So, I mean, I'm a pro wrestling nerd as well too, and stuff. So, but alrighty then. Well, Jay,
anybody want to check me out? Keep an eye on Janesville Wrestling Alliance. That's a company I'm involved in my hometown. We ran years and years ago, and we just kind of got back in the saddle again. We did one show in November.
Okay.
So it was pretty rough with all the guidelines and stuff. So we're gonna take a little break again. But it was one of those things where we booked the show before COVID happened. So
gotcha.
We got it done. So keep an eye out for that. check out my Facebook page. And thanks for having me on the show.
Awesome. No problem. Well, thanks again for doing this for me and stuff. I will, I'm sure I'll be talking to you here in the, over the next few weeks and stuff as we get closer to the show on April 17th. I will be there. I bought my ticket at the last show, so I'm all set already. So yeah, thanks again for hopping on with me for a little bit, and have a good night.
All right. Thank you.
You got it.
This is Tim Storm, former NWA World's Heavyweight Champion. You're listening to What Do You Say with DDJ. If you love professional wrestling, this is where you need to get your information. Don't miss this.
Jay, thank you so much for taking the time to chat with me this evening. I really enjoyed our talk and hearing your story, and I hope my fans that are listening to this enjoyed it just as much as I did. Fans, be sure to support Jay and by going to ProWrestlingTees.com and getting one of his shirts. If you're watching this on YouTube, the information will be coming across the screen right about now. And for those of you who are listening to this on any of the major podcasting platforms, the information will be in the episode description. Also, be sure to check out many of the different products and companies that are sponsored or that sponsor Jay. Those will be coming across the screen as we speak now. We got Collar and Elbow, some really good sounding energy drink and some other stuff. So information's on the screen, and I'll also be sure to put that in the episode description as well. And last but definitely not least, and maybe most importantly, be sure to catch Jay Kross in action along with the rest of the superstars of Chicagoland Championship Wrestling as they come back to Michigan City, Indiana on April 17th, 2021. Information for that show is coming across the screen right now. And also, again, ticket information and where you can go to get your tickets and all that stuff will be posted in the episode description. That's all the time I got this week. Once again, thank you so much, Jay, for hopping on with me. And to all of you who listen to this show, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. And so I will see you in about another week with a brand new episode of What Do You Say with DDJ. Thanks so much.